Hey, welcome back. History of design. What are we down to? Week 14, session 14 out of 16. Getting things done. This is the last chapter. So let's break down. Oh, these are reversed. That's going to bug me. All right, attendance as we do it every week. Two more, 14, 15, 16, just a couple left. Was a logo type? A logo consisting of text only. Bing. Logo type. That's an easy one. You guys know how to do it. Just kind of, get those things in your head. What do it's the more definitions you know when you talk to others, when you talk to clients, the smarter you sound, the more confident you are and they are with your product. That's what it's about, being confident when we move on and talk to people about our work and what we're going to give them. The digital revolution and beyond. As I said, this is the last one. So again, I'm going to leave you on your own. You know what to do with these. I'm going to go through a little lecture. Don't worry. But this one, Digital Revolution title is an illustrator. And the Digital Revolution tag is an InDesign. We flip-flop because we want to be proficient in two programs. The two programs, you never know when you're going to need one or the other, multi-page, single page. What are we doing? So we need to know about those. So these are standard. We've been doing this. This is the 14th time you've done this. You know what you're doing. I trust you all. Thursday, we'll work on the zine. I'll show you some stuff that I've been working on. It's just basically, it'll be work in progress. And then the final. So we're just going to button up details. The digital rough is due on Thursday. Then we check it out, move this, adjust this, refine this, and we've done it. We've gone through this kind of design before. It's fairly quick, fairly easy. And then 15 and 16. The notification will pop up next week about the last day of class as well. The last day of class is, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't have this. Why am I mentioning it if I don't know what it is? Is the 21st. Everything will be due on the 21st. So that's 2 weeks from now. So Thursday, May 21st. It's our final class together. Everything's due that day at midnight. Yeah, so that's it. We're donezo. All right, let's talk about the digital revolution and beyond. All right. And this will be fairly quick. These last few days with me will be quick. I'd rather you spend the time on the designs now and finishing up and stuff like that. So I'm not going to be lecturing much more. Well, this is the last chapter lecture. So we're just going to be talking about the designs, final everything. So cool. All right. The digital revolution and beyond. And some of this is crazy going over this. Some of this pertains so much to now, but in a new way. It's a little bit crazy. So what happened? Computers came out. And then so it says before the 1990s, creating a printed page required a small army of specialists. It did. There were people, they were typesetters, production artists, camera operators, all these different people. So you would sketch out a design. This is what I want. And then, blah, 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 blah. And there'd be text here. And then we have a photo here. And then a logo here. And then maybe more text here. What you would do is you would send the text off to a typesetter you would measure the area. You would know, and you would tell them, let's say it's 4x6. I want, 7, I'm trying to think 36 lines and then two columns. So that typesetter would take the text and typeset it exactly to your specs and then send it back to you. And then you would cut it out and literally paste it, glue it, tape it into your setup. And then sometimes this would be the production artist kind of like would be doing some of this. And then you'd have camera operators. So you'd have this logo and you'd be like, we have the logo. Oh my God. This is supposed to be the Apple logo. And I don't know what it looks like, So I have this logo and I need it at 2.5 by 2.5. So you would go to a camera operator who would then take a picture of the logo, scaling it exactly to the size you want, and then they would send you, here it is in exactly 2.5, and then you'd cut it out and you would paste it on. So there's people behind all different areas of the design itself, not just like the designer. So you had a ton of people working on it. And then now, of course, you don't need those people anymore. As a designer, I deal with, the only thing I don't do as a designer is I won't do photography. I've just never been good at it, but I know people who can, but I also don't want to do it. I don't want to learn it. But I have Photoshop. So when I get a photo, I can make the adjustments. I can scale it myself. I can turn it from color to black and white, or, make it a duotone, or make it how I want and not have to rely on somebody else. Typesetting, all done. I can do it myself. All the production base, getting it ready, high-res images, blah, 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 all that stuff. A production artist isn't needed anymore. We still have production artists. They will work. They see your work. So when you send your design to the printer, a production artist looks at it. Press, they might be called a press person as well, but they look at it and then they'll write back to you and be like, all these parts are wrong. You need to fix them, or we'll fix them and then we'll charge you. And so they are the ones who take your design to make sure and double check it. Your best option is to make sure your design is perfect before, and then you send it off and then it's okay, ready to go. So that's how that works now. So now it's all up to us, and then it does go to a production artist, but that production artist isn't in-house now. They are at the printer, and they kind of stop things before everything goes haywire. So now we do it all. And that is because of the big three, Apple, Adobe, and all this, who started the revolution of design. These are just some old fonts from them. And it was a different era with the designing the fonts. Like now it's just like anybody can do it, right? Anybody. Getting digital fonts back in the day, again, much harder. You pay for them. Now you don't pay for them. Now you're just like, oh, some schlub just uploaded it to the font. It looks like crap, but I'll use it. It fits my need. If you pay for better fonts that have auto tracking and kerning and all that stuff built in, or you use the Adobe fonts. But all that has changed, but all that has developed over the years as more and more people are using it. So even like Adobe invented the PostScript, the language that allows computers and printers to talk about fonts. That's the big one. Oh, all of this. PageMaker. But that will turn into this one. So what makes that PostScript language so important is that printers, I want to say, I don't remember this fully, but I believe there was a time in which you almost had to load the font to the printer, even like not a desktop printer, but like a big printer. you would have to download that font to the printer as well. So the printer had the font in it. So when you sent your stuff over to print it, it could print it in the right font. Otherwise, you'd get a font that didn't show up. And this was, probably before outlining your text, which we can do now to get around that. The other one with PageMaker. So this PageMaker and the democratization of design. So much like Kodak camera, photography was available to everyone. Desktop publishing took typography and layout out of the exclusive hands of professionals and made it accessible to the general public. This is what happened 30 some years ago when I was in college and leaving college. I did not choose a graphic design route, even though I ended up in graphic design. But at the time, desktop publishing was big, very big. And companies were saying to themselves, we don't need to hire a graphic designer. We can have somebody here just make our stuff using PageMaker. It was PageMaker. PageMaker was like the devil for a while. That happened until they realized, and a lot of companies realized, and it wasn't like 6 months, it was, years. But then companies slowly started to realize, well, the thing that we're doing is we're having somebody who doesn't have a design background design our stuff. It was somebody who I like Page. I like to dabble. Why don't I do it? I'll do it. I'll do it. It's a fun thing for me. Well, it turns out that fun thing for that person, that they weren't trained in any sort of way in design. So companies over time kind of realize what we want to get out isn't what we want anymore. Like what we're doing in-house, we're getting beat out. It looks like crap. And they started to realize, we need to hire graphic designers. Even though we thought we could do it in-house, it is better to have somebody who's trained in it, who can do it quicker, who can do it better, who can do it more consistently overall, like keeping brand consistency, not just being like, I like pink this week, and so I'm going to change everything to pink. You're like, what happened? So that took a few years. It took a few years for that to come around. And luckily I was on the tail end of that. I was on the tail end of it. And when people started reaching out for a minor part of my career changes and times is I have an illustration bachelor's degree. But whenever I talk to people about illustration, they always asked if I could do graphic design as well. And so I just started lying. And then I trained myself in graphic design. I went to Kinko's, worked on computers at copy places. They would have computers where you could rent them by the hour, and they had the Adobe. And I would just sit there and okay, how do you do this? I knew computers. It wasn't like I never had a computer before, but I really just needed to learn the software. I knew how to use a computer, which brings us into PostScript and Bezier curves. Adobe's PostScript language treated fonts as mathematical outlines rather than just a collection of dots. So it used Bezier curves, mathematically generated curves defined by control points to create smooth, scalable forms and graphics. Adobe Illustrator, InDesign. So now this is it. So this is like pixels, bumpy and gross, and then we now have figured out how to make these curves. And when we scale these curves, either up or down, they scale perfectly and they stay smooth because it is a mathematical point rather than a collection of blocks, which no matter what, a collection of blocks can only get as small as it's allowed. And so there's always going to be a breakdown of that collection of boxes, which are the pixels. Or what happens is somebody creates a collection of boxes to create their letter, and they don't update it as times change. They built it at one point to what was the highest resolution available as a standard, but then a year later, that standard has doubled, which means that person would have to go in and recreate that font using the squares to update to a higher one. But then if not everybody's using one and the other, there's a mix. Some are low res, even though they don't have the infrastructure to have the higher res stuff, this, that, and the other. Bezier curves takes that away. We are mathematically speaking about stuff. So it changes how our fonts are now. So now when we do fonts, like you go font with it's all curves. You can draw it out however you want, bring it in, get a pen tool on it, make it curves, and then it's infinitely scalable, and it doesn't matter who, where, what, why, and how you place it, you're done. So it's pretty cool. And then April Graymans, loved it all. A pioneer embraced the glitches and bitmap textures. So it's kind of like a mix. So it's not like this came out right away. There was a long time of this. And why not embrace that? Why not, like, it's like the original grunge design, I would say. David Carson, you guys know, I talk about him all the time. It's because I wish, like, wish I could be him. He's cool, just all out there. But he like just embraces like, oh, it glitched. Okay, I'm going to use that glitch even more. Like, how did I do that? And there's so much stuff that's available out there that like you can work with that. A lot of it is when I have the opportunity to teach Photoshop, it's like Photoshop a lot of times is like finding the glitch to get what you want. Like, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I try this? And a lot of times when I work in design, I work with the glitches. I'm going to put on this filter. And then what if I put on this filter? And then I'm going to put this filter on again. What's going to happen? Well, who knows? Like, who knows? But I may get something great, or I can just undo it. But if I find something with this plus this plus this equals something great, I'm going to use it. And then I'm going to try to remember it, or I have it saved. Like, what were the 3 steps I did to get to this thing? And like, super cool. So, yeah, that's that. Emigre magazine and the cult of ugly. Rudy Vanderlands and Susanna Lico used their magazine, Emigre, to experiment with low resolution idealistic digital fonts. Their work is highly controversial, with traditionalists calling it unreadable and ugly, while they saw it as a birth of a new digital aesthetic. Yeah, it's people trying new stuff. It's always frowned upon. This is like, I don't know if I ever read this, and I can't remember when it exited my the lexicon. Let me look it up. Oh, is it still happening? No, 84. Oh, it's still around. No, until 2005. From 1984 to 2005. So I was on the tail end of maybe understanding what Emigre was, because in the 90s, in the late 90s, I was in illustration and I paid attention to that. And so by the time in 2005, maybe when I was rolling in and working as a graphic designer, I wasn't going to be looking at this magazine, and it was dying out anyway. But they're fun. They're fun if you look at back issues and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of magazines like that. I often am like, oh, I want to get a magazine. I want a magazine around the house. And then I think, when am I going to read it? Is it just going to pile up? Yeah. So there's that. All right. The death of photographic truth. There has always been this. It's not just since Photoshop, but if you look back and you take photography history, you will find that people have been messing with the photo since day one. The thing was, what you could do with the photo was more secretive because not everybody knew how to develop a photo and what went into developing your photos. Even up into the 90s, when you get film developed at Walgreens, it goes through a machine and spits it out. But if you knew how to work in a dark room and you could take that film, you could alter it. And if you look at photography in like a museum, there's a gentleman called Ansel Adams, makes black and white, passed away, black and white. He was renowned for black and white landscape photography. And everybody, and people are like, oh, it's amazing. It is amazing. I'm not making fun of it. It is amazing. But people don't also understand how much work and how much manipulation he did to the image after he took it during the film processing, during making a print. You do stuff like burning and scrubbing and burning. What's it called? Burning and dodging and burning. And you get parts to be lighter and darker when you develop it. And you go through a whole bunch of steps until you get the perfect print. And then you reprint the perfect print. So it's like a one-off. And guess what? That was old Photoshop. Everything you use in Photoshop, I would say like 90% of the tools, maybe 80 now. Let's go to 80% of the tools are named after what is used in a dark room or procedures used when using photos, like doing it originally. That's where the lexicon came from. And even in Illustrator and InDesign, all these tools we use are based on the tools that were done by hand for recognition. Oh, I need to remember how to do this, that, the other. Now, so people have always been manipulating the photograph. But when Photoshop comes out, you didn't need a dark room anymore. And more people were having computers than were having dark rooms because dark rooms were expensive. And then, computers were expensive, but you could get hobbyists. You would have far more hobbyists playing around and starting to make photographs the way they wanted. The old proverbial cat head on a person, like, wait, that's not real. And then you could do other stuff. But now we are in the new era with AI, into which you just tell something what you want and it does it. So it's gotten worse. So this whole photographic truth, for a long time, that's what newspapers were known for. A photograph was an instantaneous image of an event, and it was true. And that's no longer true. First because of Photoshop, now because of AI. Everything's altered. And in fact, there's two things that have come out to it. It is truth in advertising. So what you see in the advertisement has to be 100% true to what you will receive as a consumer, no matter how they do it. No matter how they get to it. They have to be able to prove that the object that you're seeing in that photo is exactly what you're going to get. When you see food, and it started with like McDonald's, and people would be like, they show an image of a burger, and then what I get doesn't look like that. Well, what they do is they get all the supplies directly from McDonald's. They hand pick every bun, every lettuce. They hand cut. The tomato comes from McDonald's, but they cut it themselves, and then they arrange it. Every piece of that burger that you see on the advertisement is true to form. Hold on one second. I'm going to lecture. Can I help you?
No. If you want to lecture, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let me.
Your class now.
Maybe like 20 more minutes.
20 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, I'll come back. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you. Hey, okay. So to continue on. So we have that. So there's truth in advertising, and now it's getting it. That is becoming, it also became a thing with models. and they would take, the female model, and they'd, like, dare I say, like, too hippie, and they'd be like, oh, let's just alter the hips, or alter the face, or alter, the breasts. They would do that. And then they're like, okay, you can't do this anymore. You can't alter it. It changes it. So there's that. There's a whole lot of this in the truth in photography. Nonlinear communication in the web. The web. This is it's like, I feel like it's like choose your own adventure. Personally chosen path. So now we have the web. We can find anything we want, anywhere we want, anyhow. So the communication has now changed, and we've opened up the development, and what's happening in the world is getting closer and closer and closer. I talked about that last week. We talked about that with designs and how things, like, I can see what's happening in other parts of the world just as quick as they are seeing them happen. It's like the news now. Like, there's no delay. And if something's getting traction in Bangladesh as a design thing, well, everybody's going to see it. Like, oh, this is getting popular. It's such a different world now. And so now there's really no separation of, like, trends and how they start and when they start and how soon they get somewhere else. They take weeks instead of months. It's something like that, just very short time. And you think that any of that is now due to the internet and sharing. Moving on. New typographic expression, of course. David Carson taking what April did with the change up of style, now with Bezier curves. So we have what the postscript and the Bezier curve. Then April, Grayman's new landscape, and transferring that and bringing it all together to the more modern time. All right. 20 years, 20 years difference. And it's a huge difference, and that's what we're dealing with now when we talk about, like, kind of like the photography, and this photography truth to the AI one is 20 years. It's another 20 years. When I was a beginner designer, like, there would be articles on the truth of photography. So, this new typographic expression is now just the new version of what April was giving us. It's cool. I love it. I wish I could do it. It's hard. You look at that and you'd be like, oh, it looks like anybody could do that. No, it is so hard. It is crazy hard. Like, cutting it up, and where do I cut and how do I do it? All that kind of stuff. Super hard, crazy hard. I was hoping to try to do some of it with our zine, and I'm like, kind of like stalling. I'm like, oh my god, this is hard. This is hard. So, and then I like this, the rebirth of craft. So I love the old stuff. I love the way it looks. There's more and more people trying to emulate that. The press, there are people saving presses, getting letter presses. It's called a letter press. And there's a mix now of using letterpress and modern technology to create the presses for the letterpress. And then so when you end up and you hand the client their piece, it has a texture, it has a feel, it has a little off. It's not just so computer and so straight up. And that's great. I love it. You go up north to Two Rivers, to the Hamilton Type and Press Museum. And it's I should go. I think I'm going there in a week or two. I should go to that museum. It's super cool. And it harkens back to the era. People are still doing it. setting up letterpress. There's a famous one in Nashville, and coming across. So that's this like old, perfect, old style idea here. So rebirth the craft, bringing the old back, but in a new way with new technology. Womp and womp. So that's it. So as I always talk, I picked and chose, and I give you my views. There's a whole chapter in here for you to peruse through. Find what you like, dig around. A lot of things I skipped over. But hopefully you'll find some greatness in here for your designs. So as we come around full circle, do the Digital Revolution and Beyond title and see if that title can then work with the Digital Revolution Beyond design. You know what to do. You've done it before. It is your final one. Do it with a bang. And then next week, we will do a different project to close everything out. So that is it. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? All right. Well, keep an eye on your time and when the course ends, and make sure I will, like I said, it'll pop up next week at the beginning of 15. So you have 15 and 16, a notification about when we close up, and you know how to reach me, and I'll get to everything, any midweek session reviews after I'm done with lecturing today, and I'll talk to you all later. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.